I have ranked weapons, recruits, cities, zones. I have ranked minor and major bosses. I have ranked many things in Kenshi. And today, I am ranking all of the factions. There's so many of factions out here. And we're gonna have to go through all of them really fast because there's like more than 50. So we're gonna go rapid fire. We're gonna go the 6-barrel harpoon fast. Something like that. Anyway, we're going to be ranking them on how cool they are, how much of an importance they have in the world, how easy or hard they are to fight, how obnoxious they are sometimes, and, well, mostly their general impact on the world. So, oh yes, before we start, for their representation down here, I have the general icons of where they usually spawn in the world, or where the capital is, or something like that, because it's kind of hard to, you know, get them all in otherwise, and I think this is going to be a good representation of them. Yes, now let's start. First we have the anti-slavers. They have an extremely badass leader in Tin Fist. Lots of those guys are OP martial artists. They live in a really cool location. They are your natural allies if you're trying to go against slavers or United Cities. The minus there is though that they leave the United Cities worse off after you actually win, so they can't get quite S tier, but A tier for the anti-slavers. Next we have Band of Bones, one of the Shack outcasts. These guys are pretty weaklings, but they are decent for your early training, I would say. Otherwise, their leader, Tora the Fearless, not very strong. They're nothing too special, C tier. Next on the list we have another Shack outcast. We have the Berserkers. These guys will F you up early on with their heavy weapons. They're slightly stronger Band of Bones versions, but they're still nothing too special. So they go C tier, but they can go above the Band of Bones. Next we have the Black Dragon Ninjas, aka the Cloud Ninjas. These guys are so smart. They live in a place that has a lot of gas floating around, and they're not using masks to protect themselves from gas. Yeah, pretty stupid. They're not too strong, and they're kind of obnoxious, D tier. Next we have a bunch of weeaboos that will dab away with your food and leave you hungry. Yes, we have the Black Dragon Ninjas. These guys are the cooler version of the previous dudes, and they have two cool leaders as well, one of them having a Meitu blade. I think these guys are pretty decent. They'll go into B tier, you know, their raids are well known and annoying, but they are decent combatants. Then we have Black Dog. I wouldn't be surprised if many of you haven't ever really encountered them. There's not that many of them around. Their HQ is kind of out of the way. They don't let you in, and if you go in, they'll fight you. A couple of people are there. Otherwise, they might try to bully you out there. If you find them in the world, they're being like, hey, give us your money, because we'll offer you protection, and then you don't want their protection, and they want to fight you. But anyway, Black Dog, I think it's F tier. Then we go to Black Shifters, one of the gangs from the swamps, but these guys, they're smart. They love to grow hashish, and they actually have a secret drug farm quite out of the way from the swamps, protected by some nasty skeleton spiders. These guys are kind of cool. They deserve to be at least in B tier. Next we have Blood Raiders. These guys will bleed you because they love their bleedy weapons, but otherwise they're kind of a punching bag style of people. You'll easily defeat them many times over. At best, they can be D tier. Then we have Bounty Hunters. These guys are kind of chill boys. You know, you see them wander around. They're like beefy, strong boys that will go for the bounties. Usually, they will ignore you, even if you have bounty. They will attack you at the worst possible time, always. Also, they're kind of afraid of going after the Bugmaster, even though they're, you know, he's the greatest bounty in the world. So, kinda, but C tier. Then we have the Cannibal Hunters. I gotta admit, the Cannibal Hunters, kinda big thumbs up for these guys. They will save your ass out there in the cannibal plains. They will chop up many cannibals. They do have pretty sturdy home base, and their leader is also pretty strong. Not an easy place to fight if you want to actually attack them. They're pretty cool. I'll put them into B tier. Next we have Crab Raiders. I know a lot of you guys really love these dudes. They're very unique and, you know, unfortunately out of the way. They have their special assaults with the crab tournaments that are unfortunately extremely buggy, so there is that. They have their unique armor that is very strong and very resistant. And, you know, if you want to lose limbs, you can go fight their crabs. Or if you want to get stronger, you can go fight them because they're pretty decently tough. I think the crab raiders are definitely A tier. That cat next on the list. These guys are defeated. They are hiding. They have been taken over by the cannonballs. And they're very afraid of them. Very unfortunate for them. They are kind of a weakling people. They still fight the cannibals, but they, you know, we all know cannibals are pretty weak. They should have pushed back. D tier. Next we have drifters. They are not really a proper faction per se, but they do exist as a faction, and most recruits are part of the drifters. Now with some mods you can get drifters to even move into your town and such, but this is, you know, vanilla ranking, so drifters like this, they don't really mean much, you know. The only bonus is that Beep is a drifter as well, so, but for now, just D tier. Next we have Dust Bandits. These guys get a big bonus because they're the traditional enemy of the new players, you know. All of us who first started playing, the Dust Bandits were something we always fought and all that such. And the Dust King is this really cool dude who terrorizes like this early starting area. I think for that they get a decent bonus, even though, you know, if you play the game for a bit longer, you realize they're really not strong, but they do have significance, so B tier. Then we have the Empire Peasants. These guys are mostly ignorable people, just really nothing much to do to them. If you fight in the United Cities, they might call for alarm and all that such, so they're a bit obnoxious, but really not a faction that you ever have much interaction with. So for now, D tier. Next we have Flotsam Ninjas. These guys are extremely freaking badass. They are the Holy Nation Outlaws, a group of women fighting against the sexism of the Holy Nation. I think they're amazing. They have a cool hiding spot. They allow you to use their safe house if you escape from Rebirth, and they help people who escape from Rebirth. I think for that, they get lots and lots of bonus points, and their leader is extremely badass. Flotsam Ninjas, S tier. Then we have Free Traders. These guys control the shops in the United Cities, so you probably not even realize they're out there. You know, you trade with them, their guards might be free traders, but you know, if you get in trouble in the United Cities, chances are they will also fight you, so Their only real, like, cool person is the Hermothi, who trades around. Usually you can find them in Hang. And she hates skeletons, so there's something special about that, but I don't think they can go higher than C tier. Then we have the Fogmen, the Dead Boys. These guys are really unique and special, and I like that. You know, I like that in any game. They're great if you want to train toughness as a Skelly boy. You know, you can go just fight the hordes out there. They're great limb removal service if you want to get some limbs eaten off if you're a human. So I think they have a lot of unique, cool stuff going for them, and they will spread over the world if the other queens are dead. So I think the Fogmen deserve A tier. Next we have the Grass Pirates. These guys are nothing too special, besides that they call themselves pirates, which is kind of cool, but they're not really on the ocean. They will fight you. There can be decent training partners. They will also fight the United Cities, which is kind of cool. So C tier. Next, we have another band from the swamps. We have the Grey Flayers. These guys smuggle hashish out of the swamps, and they have the Smuggler's Bar, which is conveniently placed in a very nice area out there where you can, you know, stop and rest and all that such. I think they deserve B tier. Next, we have the Holy Nation Outlaws. They control the hub, which is kind of a bonus for them, but otherwise, nothing really. They hate the Holy Nation, but they're weaklings. They're not really badass like the Flotsam Ninjas are. So we'll put them into C tier because they're really just nothing more than bandits with a kind of a bit of a home. Next, we have the Hounds, another gang from the swamps. These guys are pretty cool. These guys are usually the top gang of the swamps, and you can actually do a quest for them. Yes, in Kenshi, there is a quest that these guys will actually offer to you. It's crazy that there's quests in Kenshi. I will put them into B tier. I think they deserve to be there. They're really cool. And then we have the last of the Shank Outcasts. We have the Kral's Chosen. They're similar to Berserker and the Band of Bones, but they're a bit stronger than both of those guys. And they're decent if you want to lose some limbs early on because they have heavy weapons. So they're, you know, they're above these two guys over here. but nothing above C tier. Then we have Manhunters. We all know these guys love to cause you issues when you're in the Great Desert, because even if you're, you know, strongly equipped, they're like, hey, you know, these guys look like an escape slaves, let's go for them. Yeah, Manhunters, that's fine, but they can be decent training partners out there in the desert, and they can be useful for that. They can cause issues for you in a city though, so that could be problematic, but I don't think they're anything more than a C tier. Then we have the daddy figures, the mercenaries. These guys can be really useful for players that just start a playing game, or, you know, if you have very low level characters. These guys can soak the damage for you, they can heal you up, they can keep you safe. As I said, daddy figures, B tier. Next we have the nomads. These guys are all over the place. They can be baited to fight some fights for you, but more often than not, they will actually go and they will heal your enemies, because these guys are friends with a lot of people, unfortunately. You can buy animals from them, so that's a bonus. You can make your own goat army. I don't think these guys are anything more than a C. Then we have the painted tribe, the cannonballs. These guys have strength in numbers. These guys are usually weaklings, but you know, there can be quite a lot of them. They have that annoying perk where they will pick you up if you're downed and just run away with you. You know, that could be pretty problematic, but otherwise, you know, they're pretty weak. So if you want to go train a bit, you can cut them down pretty easily. They have a really cool leader, and they are something unique in the world of Kenshi, so I think they deserve at least a B tier. Then we have the Preacher Cult. These guys, as I've said before many times, I think they're a bit of a failed opportunity. They could be so cool. Their Preacher has one of the coolest Mei-2 blades out there, but they are so weak. They have one village, and they're really easy to just destroy and kill them, so unfortunately, they're F tier. Then we have the Rebel Farmers. These guys have the just cause of fighting nobility that treats the poor very badly. They do that, they fight them, and for that they kind of have to resort to banditry, unfortunately, so they tend to fight you as well. But their boss, you know, you can talk to them, you can go there, maybe missing an arm or something like that, or if you're at war with the United Cities, you can join him, and they will gladly fight for you against the oppressors. B tier, I think. Next we have the Reavers. These guys are the best slayer faction. If you want to be enslaved, make sure to be enslaved by these guys. Why? Because they will allow you to use a weapon, and I think that is great. It's great for training early on, especially if you're more inexperienced. So the Reavers, very cool. They hate the United Cities as well. They are good training companions, they're pretty unique, and they have a cool base. I think A tier for the Reavers. Then we have the Red Sabers. These guys are all over the swamp, they fight the swamp ninjas, and they will fight you as well, of course they will. They're decent training partners, but you know, you have to go down to the swamps, which are pretty dangerous. So I don't think they're anything above C tier, but they are at least cool. Then we have Sand Ninjas, which in my opinion are the coolest ninjas out there, unless we, you know, if you forget the Shinobi. These guys are really great training partners out there in the desert if you want to fight them. You can also cash them in for some bounties sometimes. They're cool because they have their cool basket hats, and they usually have some decent gear. If you start in the desert, you get some decent gear for yourself, and you can also sell some of that. I think these guys are A tier. Then we have the Scavengers. These guys are meh at best, and they have an interesting leader who is unfortunately very weak. They do use crossbows, so they will shoot at you, but they're just bandits that prefer to loot the dead rather than fight the dead. I think they're nothing special. F tier. Next we have the Shack Kingdom. These guys are badasses. If you want to play as a badass, you play as a Shack with a giant sword and, you know, just smack everything. These guys are for the warriors. They're a faction that is dying off though. They have a lot of problems, but if you fight them, they are definitely tougher to fight than the Holy Nation. I'll put them into A tier. Then we have Shinobi Thieves. What is there not to love about Shinobi Thieves? They're your greatest friends. There's a lot of safe spots where you can go to them and stay inside of a city, heal up, hide from the authorities. They will defend you if needed. You know, they have the best backpacks, they have cheap stuff, and you can sell them basically all the contraband. You can also smuggle the hashish into the United Cities and sell to them. I mean, What is there not to love about the Shinobi Thieves? I think they're S tier. Then we have the Shrieking Bandits. These guys are crazy. There's nothing else to say. These guys are crazy. You can have an endless fight against them. If you go into the Shrieking Forest, there's going to be an endless stream of them. You can just fight and fight and fight. And it's a good test for endurance. You can also try to communicate with them by yelling, and you know, that might work for you, that might not. I think they're B tier because of their uniqueness. Then we have Skeletons. The OG boys, the last sane remnants of the Skeletons. They will live in the Black Desert City. You might find them up north, traveling around. These guys are pretty freaking cool. They have the best armor, they have the best weapons, and they have some ancient tech. What is there not to love about them? Skeletons, I think, are great, and their capital is also amazing, A tier. Then we have the Skeleton Legion. These guys are those who are still loyal to Catlon, once the Great Emperor. Once again, freaking cool. They have their unique armor that looks amazing, and they are the late game enemies that you want to go down to the Ashlands to fight and spar against. I think these guys are really cool. They deserve A tier as well. Then we have the Skeleton Bandits. These guys think they're skeletons, but they're not. You can join them if you want to. You know, you can talk to them and join them and fight the Skin Bandits and the Crab Raiders for them. But out of those factions, I think they're the weakest link out there, and at best they can be C tier. Then we have Skin Bandits, they're opposite boys. You know, these guys are skeletons, but they think they have skin. Yes, very special people down in the southeast of Kenshi. These guys are the Peeler boys. They have the really cool and unique leader, and they are pretty badass. They're tough to beat. Their weapons are strong. I think they are definitely better than the Skin Bandits, and I think, or the Skeleton Bandits, I think deserve B tier for that. Next, we have the Slave Hunters. These guys seems like the boys that once were slaves, but are no longer slaves, and now they hunt slaves. The worst kinds of people, really. Their weaklings, their gear and such is terrible, but they will turn up when you least need them and try to enslave you. D tier at best. Then we have the Slave Traders. Now these guys have importance all over the Kenshi. They're a very important faction. They have ties in with the Traders Guild, and you know, they kind of run all the slave camps out there, even though they don't really belong to them. They belong to the nobles, but these guys have extreme importance in the world, and I think they are A tier faction. Then we have the Southern Hive. These are the badass hive. These guys are pretty cool. They have a strong queen and they have even stronger king. They're pretty tough to fight, and if you take down their queen, they will go and send a really cool and unique raid against you. Not only it's unique, it's also tough to beat. So I think Southern Hive definitely deserve a decent ranking. They will also invade the Western Hive lands if the Western Hive Queen is dead, which is kind of cool. I'll put them into B tier. Next, we have the Starring Bandits. These guys are usually your first training or sparring partners when you fight them early on, but unfortunately they're weaklings and they're really not good for more than 1 or 2 fights. They will steal your food though, you know, if they down you, but otherwise not that strong or important. D tier. Then we have Stone Rats, another of the factions out there in the swamps. They're obnoxious. They will come to bully you if you have your base set in the swamps. And you know, I really like fighting them because they have pissed me off many times. Unfortunately, they're not really that special, you know. Just being bullies is that all there is about them. C tier. Then we have the Swampers, the guys who are all over the swamp, and these guys are the actual probably only nice people in the swamps, but they often get into trouble with the other gangs and they tend to lose, so that kind of goes against them. I think they are C tier though. Next, we have the Swamp Ninjas. I think these guys are a bit too of a pushover for, you know, where they live. They live in the swamps, one of the more dangerous areas for the lower to mid-level range, and with their equipment, they get wrecked by everything. Sure, they have some of those decent katanas, but if you have a bit of a stronger armor, they can't really do anything to you, and they get beat up by red sabers as well, even though they usually have better stats. I don't think they're really good. D tier for the Swamp Ninjas. Next, we have the only true adventurers of the whole Kenshi. We have the Tech Hunters. These guys work for the Machinists, and they adventure all over the world. They know stuff. They have way stations around there, you know, where you can go and feel safe. They're really cool, and I gotta admit, I really like Tech Hunters. I think they are definitely A tier. As if Venge doesn't have enough of problems with the beams from the sky, you also have Thrall Masters there, with the Thralls running around and trying to beat you bloody with their weapons that make you bleed out pretty fast. They have two cool leaders who have basically beheaded a bunch of skeletons that now work for them. They also guard Agnew, so very, very cool, unique recruit. And they have their base where you can find some really good loot. I think the Thrall Masters deserve at least a B tier. Next, we have the martial artist bastards. We have the Guerrilla Bandits. These guys love to fight you with their big, strong arms. And we all know the martial arts are overpowered, so they can be very tough and very strong. But luckily for all of us, they wear light armors. You can, you know, beat them up pretty easily. They have a cool base out at the old prison, but I mean, their leader is kind of cool, but nothing too special. I think they are C tier. Next, we have Holy Nation. Racist, xenophobic, zealous, sexist. Should I go on? Yes, there are many, many horrible things, but they are very important to this world because they're kind of a buffer between the United Cities and the Shack, and they fight both of them, and they're somehow still alive. Yes, they hate women. Yes, they hate all the other races. There's many terrible wrong things with them, but I think for the whole of Kenshi, they're very important. And their Phoenix guy is pretty cool, even though he's a terrible human being. I think the Holy Nation is A tier. Then we have Traders Guild. These are the guys that actually control all of the slave camps. These are the nobles that, you know, control the slave camps, and they're horrible people. They're pushovers, the nobles, but their guards are very strong. It feels very good to dismantle the slave camps and fight these guys. They do have decent importance in the world, but you know, they're also horrible people. B tier for the slavers. Next, we have the crazy organ dealers. Yes, you heard me right. You know, this is RimWorld leaking into Kenshi. Alas, you can't really buy organs from them. These are the Twin Blades. They're also hiding in the swamps. There's not many of them, and there is some talk about them selling organs, but you know, nothing really happens there. So I think at least they are D tier, if not F, but let's put them in D. Then we have the America of Kenshi. The USA of Kenshi, we're rich, stay rich, and poor, get poorer. Where being poor is a crime. These guys are freaking cool though, because they're still accepting of everybody, of course, as long as you have money. I think United Cities are pretty cool out here. The world of Kenshi would not be the same without them, and their nobles are also pretty cool. I think their samurais are freaking badass, and United Cities, S tier in my opinion. On the other side of things, we have United Heroes League running around the United Cities. These guys are the worst. They're racist, but they're also terrible weaklings. You can just destroy them and their main base with ease, and I think they're nothing more than F tier. And then we have Vagrants. These guys are the starving bandits of the United Cities. They're slightly stronger than starving bandits, but they have way less importance than the starving bandits have in the original border zone. And I think these guys are at best F tier. Next we have a Western Hive. These guys have unfortunately a weak queen. You know, compared especially to the Southern Hive. Southern Hive, much more badass than the Western Hive. These guys will try to extort you for money when they're selling you their lamps. Likely you don't really need them, but they're still cool. You know, they're your hive friends. They have the cool soldier hives. They did kind of kick out Beep, unfortunately, so that's kind of a bad thing for them. But I still think Western Hive are very cool and unique because they kind of trade with everybody but the Holy Nation out there in Kenshi. And I think they deserve to be at least in B tier. Last but not the least, probably a faction not many of you have ever heard of or fought, Yabuta. Yabuta Outlaws. Yes, if you release Yabuta from Tengu's vault, he's gonna form his own faction, and he's a freaking psycho, so his faction will fight you and everybody else as well, causing issues all over the United Cities, all over the Great Desert, because they're kind of a dicks. You know, you saved the man, now he's gonna fight you and try to kill you. These guys are D tier, and you know what? That concludes my ranking over here. Let me know, what would you change? Who would you put into S tier? Who would you put into F tier? Is there any faction that you really like that you would rank higher? Is there any faction that you really dislike that you would rank lower? Let me know down in the comments, and for now, thank you for watching. Go check out some streams. I stream Kenshi 3 times a week. Thank you.